Hello again. It's very common for our system's behaviour to depend on the outcome of multiple decisions in combination. That is, the way our systems behave requires several decisions to be made based on different inputs and choices. In this video, we'll look at how decision tables work as a way of modelling these combinations and outcomes, and how ARD supports decision tables. Now, the first thing I'll talk about is what a decision table actually is and what they look like. And I'll use the example from the last video to work through a decision table and the rules and conditions and so on, that you'll see how they work. And then we'll use ARD to create the same decision table and use it in our testing in the creation of test cases. And then there'll be a short summary at the end. So the first thing is, it's very common for the outputs of systems to depend on multiple input values. So for example, a screen to purchase an item off an e-commerce store, there are several pieces of data required in order to execute the transaction, and the outcome of the transaction may depend on different combinations. It may vary with different combinations of inputs. And it's this situation that decision tables can help us with. For example, in the last video, we had a discount calculation which depended on three inputs, which was whether the client was a new customer, do they have a loyalty card, are they using a coupon for a purchase. So what a decision table actually is it's a convenient way to lay out the various input condition combinations and outcomes. It's a shortcut to tabulate test cases in some respects. Now, ARD has a convenient decision table modelling symbol to implement them. It's a drag and drop, and we can create a decision table very easily. So what I'm showing here is the conventional layout of a decision table that is used in, for example, the certification schemes for testing. But this is the common layout that has been around for many years, and you will see it again and again. Now, the first thing to notice is that we have on the top left, the conditions themselves. Now, the conditions represent the situations of interest. So in our case, we have a new customer, loyalty card, coupon, and they all have the situation, the scenario of being true or false. So the conditions are basically input data, the input values of concern. Now, each combination of input values is described as a rule. So in this case, we have a whole series of rules from left to right, rules 1 to 8. And you can see the various combinations of true, 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 false, and so on. And these rules, each one of them results in some form of action or outcome or output. And so the actions are towards the bottom of the table, and you can see the various discounts in this case towards the bottom. Now, one of the rules for decision tables to work for us in this way, to be a reliable tabulated set of rules, test cases if you like, is that the order of evaluation is not important. So regardless of whether we look at new customer, loyalty card or coupon first, second or third, the outcomes should be the same. That's one of the rules of the decision table format. Now, this is the same example, but I'm going to talk through how the discount calculator actually works. And I'm going to use this as the basis of a demonstration of how ARD uses decision tables. Now, one of the things you might notice is you can see that rules 1 and 2 both have an invalid action, an outcome if you like. And this is because new customers can't have loyalty cards. Now, you might be thinking, well, we could do this as a constraint within ARD perhaps, but the decision table itself simply represents the input conditions and the actions or outcomes. It doesn't make any choices of how you implement it, of course. And you can see there's also a duplicate outcome or action on rules 3 and 7. They both result in a discount of 20%. So in fact, there are 6 distinct outcomes in this table, but there are 8 rules being implemented. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the presentation and just move that table towards the bottom right so I can see it, and it'll help me to create the decision table in Agile Designer. So in Agile Designer, let's create a new model. I'll call it discount decision table for the sake of argument. Keep it simple. And I'm going to add one decision table element to it to demonstrate how this works. So we'll give it a name, discount table. Now there are some outcomes here that we don't need, so I'm going to remove these two. Okay, and go next. And the decision table, I could start adding rows and columns to this now, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish the creation of the table and then edit the table directly. So if we go into properties of discount table, you can see we have no decision table and no outputs. So I'm going to add the outputs. So this one would be discount. Gives a new value of invalid for the first one. Add another. Discount again. The first valid discount is 0. Next discount would be 10. It's the lowest we have. $15. $20, and the last one will be $30. And we'll save that. So now we have 6 outcomes from the discount table, and we could create the links to the end element in a moment. But let's go back to the properties and create the decision table. So now what I have is I've got no columns, I've got no if you like, conditions to look at. So I'm going to add a column as a new variable, and this would be new customer, and it's a Boolean. And another column for loyalty card, Boolean again. The last one is a coupon. So there are 3 columns: the new customer, loyalty card, coupon. So I didn't put a default in the new customer variable, so I'll put true in there. So you can see that we have the 3 trues, and the output, the outcome of the decision table should be invalid for 3 trues. Okay, so that would be the first rule 1 here. So now let's add more rows to the decision table. So we'll add rule 2, which would be true, true, false. And that would also be invalid. Next one is rule 3, true, false, true. Outcome of that is 20. Rule 4, true, false, false. That's 15. Rule 5 is false, true. That's 30. Rule 6, false, true, false. That's 10. Rule 7 is false, false, true. . 20, and all false is 0. So that's our decision table created. So going back to our original, you can see that we've implemented this decision table here. So I'll save that. Now the next thing we need to look at is we can build up the model now to make use of all the various outcomes. So we'll start over here. We'll just start with the invalid one. I'll try 0. 10. 15. 20. And we'll squeeze the last one in here. 30, and just to pull that one to separate out. So you can see there's the full set of paths. So now we can go into Path Explorer, and as usual we'll look at all possible paths, see what comes up. And there's our 8 paths. So the 8 paths represent, going back to our decision table, the 8 rules. But even though there are 8 paths, there are only 6 outcomes. It's the data that drives the different combinations and permutations. So all looks good. We've got our test cases. So we could save these in the usual way, and we've got our 8 test cases there. So now let's look at data. So previously, when we looked at data, we had to create the default values from the model. But that's done for us. In effect, the decision table element that we create in the model automatically creates the data for us. The rules are the test cases, and that's the way that we've always considered decision tables to work, in that each rule is a test case because it articulates the inputs and the outcomes. Now what's not there so far is an expected result. So with regards to adding the expected result, we need to do that in the usual way, and we could look at the decision table again, and for each output we can add an expected result, and for the 0 we could say that's 0 discount, %, oops, 15, and invalid. And we could say new customers cannot have loyalty cards. And that's our output save. So now if we go into data, you can see the expected results appearing. So in effect, we've got the complete decision table implemented in Agile Designer. We can do the same thing as we tried before, export to CSV, and I've already got a previous version of this, so I'll say yes to overwrite it. There you go. And if I go into the directory where it's saved, there it is. And here's our usual format, the test cases, you have a flow name, the test name, we have the coupon, loyalty, new customer, conditions, and then our expected results, as you'd expect to see here. The decision table symbol in ARD gives you a simple implementation of decision tables for your requirements. So you could treat it as like a black box which provides a compact way of summarizing some more complicated decisions and outcomes. Now, when I created the decision table in ARD, I didn't create the table, variables and data at the same time as I created the table. I did this just to simplify the explanation. When you create rows in the decision table, you automatically create the data for your test cases. So this is a slight shortcut compared with the usual way of creating models. But you have to create your expected results in the normal way afterwards. Decision tables can be dropped into any model to give you this kind of shortcut of a more complex part of a bigger model. And it's important to realize that the path optimizer performs the path generation entirely as you would expect.